I will now call to mind my past foulness, and the carnal corruptions of my soul, not because I love them, but that I may love thee, O my God. For love of thy love I do it, reviewing my most wicked ways in the very bitterness of my remembrance, that thou mayest grow sweet unto me, thou sweetness never failing, thou blissful and assured sweetness, and gathering me again out of that my dissipation, wherein I was torn piecemeal, while turned from thee, the one good, I lost myself among a multiplicity of things. For I even burnt in my youth heretofore, to be satiated in things below, and I dared to grow wild again. With these various and shadowy loves, my beauty consumed away, and I stank in thine eyes, pleasing myself, and desirous to please in the eyes of men. And what was it that I delighted in, but to love, and be loved? But I kept not the measure of love, of mind to mind, friendship's bright boundary, but out of the muddy concupiscence of the flesh, and the bubblings of youth, mists fumed up, which beclouded and overcast my heart, that I could not discern the clear brightness of love from the fog of lustfulness. Both did confusedly boil in me, and hurried my unstained youth over the precipice of unholy desires, and sunk me in a gulf of flagitiousnesses. Thy wrath had gathered over me, and I knew it not. I was grown deaf by the clanking of the chain of my mortality, the punishment of the pride of my soul. And I strayed further from thee, and thou lettest me alone, and I was tossed about, and wasted, and dissipated, and I boiled over in my fornications, and thou heldest thy peace, O thou my tardy joy! Thou then heldest thy peace, and I wandered further and further from thee, into more and more fruitless seed-plots of sorrows, with a proud dejectedness, and a restless weariness. Oh, that someone had then attempered my disorder, and turned to account the fleeting beauties of these, the extreme points of thy creation, had put a bound to their pleasurableness, that so the tides of my youth might have cast themselves upon the marriage shore, if they could not be calmed, and kept within the object of a family, as thy law prescribes, O Lord, who this way formest the offspring of this our death, being able with a gentle hand to blunt the thorns which were excluded from thy paradise. For thy omnipotency is not far from us, even when we be far from thee. Else ought I more watchfully to have heeded the voice from the clouds. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. And it is good for a man not to touch a woman. And he that is unmarried thinketh of the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things of this world, how he may please his wife. To these words I should have listened more attentively, and being severed for the kingdom of heaven's sake, had more happily awaited thy embraces. But I, poor wretch, foamed like a troubled sea, following the rushing of my own tide, forsaking thee, and exceeded all thy limits. Yet I escaped not thy scourges. For what mortal can? For thou wert ever with me mercifully rigorous, and besprinkling with most bitter alloy all my unlawful pleasures, that I might seek pleasures without alloy. But where to find such I could not discover, save in thee, O Lord, who teachest by sorrow, and woundest us, to heal, and killest us, lest we die from thee. Where was I, and how far was I exiled from the delights of thy house, in that 16th year of the age of my flesh, when the madness of lust, to which human shamelessness giveth free license, though unlicensed by thy laws, took the rule over me, and I resigned myself wholly to it. My friends, meanwhile, took no care by marriage to save my fall. Their only care was that I should learn to speak excellently, and be a persuasive orator. For that year were my studies intermitted, whilst after my return from Madora, a neighbour city, whither I had journeyed to learn grammar and rhetoric, the expenses for a further journey to Carthage were being provided for me, and that rather by the resolution than the means of my father, who was but a poor freeman of Thagaste. To whom tell I this? Not to thee, my God, but before thee to mine own kind,